back to my channel. Somehow we are already in the 4th month of this year, and I thought it would be fun to do a little bit of a look through back through the first quarter of the year. And instead of doing it the way I did last year, I'm going to just rank all of the books that I read in the first 3 months. So it's going to be interesting. I'm going to have to look at my phone because I have a whole master list that I changed I don't even know how many times at this point, and near the bottom I have a lot of books that I just don't own anymore. So this is going to include books that I DNF'd just because, you know, I gave them a shot, I read them. I don't count them towards my Goodreads goal except for one, because I still got like a few hundred pages into it before DNFing, and I'll talk about that one. But I am going to include them in here because I did at least give them a shot. We're going to try to make this quick and concise for each book, but we all know I like to yap, so we'll see how this goes. But jumping right in, I read 51 books in the first 3 months of the year, which is actually a little bit insane. I was shocked when I saw that number. So starting off strong with number 51. Like I said, these include DNFs, so we're gonna start with my DNFs. This is the DNF that I hate the most, and it's The Time Traveler's Wife. This had definitely very strong themes of grooming in here, because when he goes back in time, he initially meets her when she's like 6, I think. She's extremely young. Instead of just waiting to introduce himself to her at another point in her life and then going, hey, like in the future, we're together, you know, waiting until it's age appropriate, he introduces himself at 6 while he's not wearing clothing. So yeah, DNF'd real quick on that one. I was disgusted. Then at number 50, one that I don't have the physical book for anymore, we have Don Quixote. This is the one DNF that I'm counting towards my Goodreads goal because, like I said, I got very far into this. The problem is the book is like 1,000 pages long, so very far into it still wasn't far enough, and I couldn't do it anymore because the story was so secular and secular. It went in circles, and it was ridiculousness, and I got bored. Then at number 49, we have Once Upon a Dream. This was another DNF where I just felt like the writing was much younger than I anticipated it to be for a YA book, and it's a fairy tale retelling. She made Aurora out to be like this really ditzy character that I didn't appreciate. I am sure that as it went on, she probably became less ditzy, but I lost interest in whether or not that was going to be the case, so I stopped reading it. Then at 48, we have A Clever Little Thing. Really wanted to like this. It's supposed to be like a psychological thriller where she's trying to figure out if her daughter's possessed or why her daughter's acting all sorts of weird. It just wasn't creepy at all, and the mom just came off as helicopter parent and to like the extreme, and she was very irritating. And I got 100 something pages into this, maybe a little bit further, and I was so bored. Like, a thriller is not supposed to be boring, so we gave that one up. And then that is it for the DNFs for the first 3 months, so not terrible. Moving into some of my classics are kind of at the bottom because some of them are a little bit boring. We have The Legend of Sleepy Hollow and Other Stories. The Legend of Sleepy Hollow itself is interesting, and I did enjoy it. There was one other one in here that I enjoyed. I forget what the name of it was, but the rest of these were just boring, very like just about the countryside and like mundane life and everything, and I just didn't really care about it that much. Then at 46, we have The Turn of the Screw and Other Short Stories. Same with Sleepy Hollow. The Turn of the Screw itself is a very interesting story. It's like a ghost story, and I really enjoy it. It's like my second or third time reading it. I just remember the other short stories in here. The other short stories, they're not ghost stories. They're pretty much all about young women entering society and the way that that looks, and they were also really boring, and I was surprised because I thought we would get more ghost stories, and yeah, that was a bit of a letdown. Then at 45, we have My Gal Sunday by Mary Higgins Clark. This was just such a letdown for Mary Higgins Clark. Like, at this point, I've come to realize that that was definitely a phase in my life where I was buying all the books because I really enjoyed it. I still enjoy them for the most part. I just don't love them as much as I did. This one, however, I think even in that phase, I wasn't going to like it. They're just short stories about a middle-aged woman that somehow keeps finding herself in the middle of all of these mysteries. And they're boring and not developed well enough because they're short stories, and it's really hard to do a short mystery story in a way that's compelling and interesting. So yeah, I didn't really like that one too much. Then we have Passenger to Frankfurt by Agatha Christie. I typically love Agatha Christie books, or at the very least enjoy them a lot. This one was just really weird, and was very heavily focused on like the idea of espionage and spies and conspiracy theories around World War II, which can be interesting, but the way that she wrote it was just overall, it just didn't make sense to me. It was very confusing and it didn't feel like a lot of things connected, and they were so out of pocket that I was like, I just can't really get into this story too much. So yeah, this one surprised me. I've looked online and a lot of people feel the same way, that this is like one of her more disappointing stories. So it wasn't just me. At 43, we have Kill Order by James Dashner. This is the prequel to the Maze Runner trilogy. I remember loving the Maze Runner trilogy when I first read it back in like high school, but this didn't read like those, or at least not my memory of those. It was just pretty much one drawn out fight scene after another, and it never really felt like we were getting anywhere. And I have the strongest theory that this book and the other prequel book, which I haven't gotten to yet, could probably have been cut down and combined into one and been a lot more informative to the original trilogy. This just dragged on and yeah, it just didn't feel like it added much to the story. Then at 42, we have Heartstoppers Volume 1. This is a graphic novel. I don't own the physical copy. I read them whenever I go to Barnes & Noble. I sit in the cafe. I've only read the first book for it. It's cute, it's fun. Graphic novels aren't necessarily my thing, which is why these are so low on my list, but I wanted to give them a shot because I've seen everybody really rave about them. So like I said, cute and fun, just not my preferred medium for reading. And then at 40 and 41, we actually have Lore Olympus Volume 1 and Volume 2. I didn't prefer one of these over the other. Like, they're just right above Heartstoppers, and in all honesty, the only reason I ranked them just right above Heartstoppers is because I love the way that the graphic design is done in this. It's really vibrant and just in your face. The colors are insane, and I really liked that style of it over the more subdued tones of Heartstoppers. So that's why it's a little bit above that, but like I said, Lore Olympus is another graphic novel, and that one follows a Hades Persephone's retelling, and it's just all about Greek mythology and the Greek gods in a more modern setting. Coming in at number 39, we have A Sea of Unspoken Things. This is another book that was really anticipated for me. Clever Little Things was one that I was really looking forward to this year. Same with this one, and it was just a letdown, and I was really surprised. In all fairness, I'd never read an Adrienne Young book before. Maybe it's her writing style that I can't really get into. I don't know. It just felt like this book was trying to do too many things. It was trying to be like mysterious. It was trying to be a little bit of a second chance romance. It was trying to have some like spooky supernatural elements in it, and it just felt like none of them were being accomplished well, and nothing was happening in the plot until like the last 100 pages, which was just too little too late at that point, and I ended up being really bored for a lot of this. Then we have a Kindle book that I read, which was Monster of the Dagger Mountain. This is the beginning of a new fantasy series, and it was interesting, but I felt like the world building wasn't done well enough for this. There were so many different elements that I really wanted to learn more about, for like the society that this girl grew up in and how they gained their magic and how they were the only ones in the world that had magic and everything like that. I liked the romance that was built in here, but I felt like the author focused so heavily on the romance that the other fantasy elements kind of took a back seat, and they could have used just a little bit more development, which in all fairness, this is her debut novel, so I can't fault her for that at all. I think as a debut novel, it was really good, but when stacked up against a lot of my other books in here, it just wasn't as good. At 37, we have All Through the Night, which is one of my Mary Higgins Clark books. This one wasn't bad. It had the fun, like, trope where it's an older couple that's solving this mystery, an older married couple. Agatha Christie did that as well in one or two of her books, and I think it's just so funny when they do that, because older married couples, you know, they just have their quirks and they bicker, and they just know each other so well from living together for so long that they can be really comical. So I enjoyed that aspect of it, but the way that the two sort of plot lines converged in here just was kind of loosely done, in my opinion. I didn't really love it too much, so for that reason it's pretty low on the list. Then next we actually have another Mary Higgins Clark book, which is The Melody Lingers On. Like I said, there was a time in my life where I adored these books, and now I feel like my reading style has changed a little bit, and they're just a little bit boring to me. Do I still have a good time reading them? Yes, they're just not as captivating, and I'm not as obsessed with them as other books on the list, so that's why this is so far down on the list. And at 35, we have A Dangerous Duet. I already unhauled this book. It was supposed to be something that was going to be really fun and intriguing. It was about this young girl that wanted to be a famous pianist at a time in history when women weren't allowed to be concert pianists. So she was pretending to be a guy and playing this piano hall, and she was supposed to get wrapped up in this crime ring. Really wanted to love it, but the whole crime ring element came in way too late. It was kind of really underdeveloped, and then the way that everything resolved itself just wrapped up so easily. It was a nice, neat little bow, and I'm like, that happened way too fast for me. So I was bored, and then I wasn't, and then we hit the end, and I went, how did we get here? So that's why that one's so low on the list. At 34, we have Blood of Hercules. I didn't know where to put this because you guys have heard me talk about it before. This felt like a fever dream reading this book. It was ridiculous in a Wattpad sort of way, but I couldn't put it down. So that was why I struggled with where to put this. Like, did I have a ridiculous time reading it? Yes. But was the plot or the world building or like any of it as good as some of the other books? Higher on the list? No. So like that's why I struggled with where to put this. Yeah, we're gonna leave that one at that because I really still just cannot speak very well on that book and my feelings toward it other than just bewilderment. At 33, we have The Unmaking of June Farrow, another Adrienne Young book that I read actually right before the other one I mentioned. I really wanted to like this because, well, I mean, I have the Fairy Loot edition, so I really wanted to like it for that reason. I just felt like it was a little underdeveloped, and there's a plot device element in here. I don't want to say what it is in case people don't know because I don't want to give it away. That like just always leaves me confused. So it could be more of a me problem than anything if I'm being honest, but I was just confused at this, and then I did feel like the romance in here was just a little bit underdeveloped. That being said, Adrienne Young does have a very beautiful, poetic way of writing. It's very atmospheric is a good way to describe it. So I appreciate that. I just don't know if the way that her plot works out is what I enjoy in books, if that makes any sense. Next we have These Twisted Bonds. This is the second book to These Hollow Vows. This is really good intro fantasy. This whole duology definitely feels very much reminiscent of ACOTAR. I think it had some Cruel Prince vibes in it too, if I remember right. And I was hoping this second book would branch out a little bit from that, but it really didn't. And I just felt very underwhelmed by the book as a whole. If I'm being honest, I really don't remember much about this at all, now that I'm sitting here thinking about it. So maybe it should have been lower on the list. I don't think so, looking at the other books that I have lower than it. Like, it wasn't a bad time reading it. It just, I wanted more. I wanted a lot more, and it just wasn't delivering that. At 31, we have Bewitched. I was a little shocked this was so low on the list when I was working through this, but this was another one where I felt very underwhelmed by it, and I had bigger expectations. The whole plot for this really should have led to a fantastic book, and even the way that things worked itself out in the book, like it was there. The basis for an absolutely incredible story was there. It just felt like she didn't lean into that hard enough. And then the main female character, she was just irritating, which is maybe a me problem, I don't know, but she was a little bit insufferable. She was very wishy-washy with her decisions. Didn't really appreciate that. And the magic system in here, just, it was convenient. Everything worked for her. It was like just silly little rhymes as spells, and whatever she wanted, she got. And it just didn't feel like there was any thought process through the magic system in this book. So that also bothered me a lot. I'm gonna read the second one still, just because I want to see how this progresses and if it gets any better, and if the male main character gets any better. But yeah, I was underwhelmed by this. I had really good, like really high expectations for this going into it that it just didn't meet. At 30, we have Ricochet by Kristen Becker Ritchie. This is the second book in the Addicted series. Listen, I didn't dislike this. I just don't connect to these characters, which I've talked about before. And if you do and you love these characters, that's great. I think the things that they go through in this book, the attempts to work through their addictions to make their relationship healthy is fantastic. I love that for them, and I love seeing stuff like that portrayed. I just couldn't connect, and the romance in here, because of the way this plot goes, I'm trying to say this without spoiling things, you don't really get a lot of in-the-moment romance, and I kind of wanted more of that, so that's why this is a little bit lower on the list than I would have expected it to be. At 29, we have By the Pricking of My Thumb by Agatha Christie. This is actually the one I was referencing when I mentioned that she'd done one with an older married couple. They were just so funny. I was literally sitting laughing while reading this, and I don't typically laugh at Agatha Christie books. They just don't necessarily normally have that quality, but I really liked this one, and I thought it was very comical, and it was also like centered around a nursing home and everything. It was funny, and the way that the whole mystery wrapped up was really shocking. Actually, I was very surprised by it. At 28, we have Frigid by Jennifer L. Armentrout. I've never read one of her books, and I actually really enjoyed her writing style. This was more of a romantic suspense, I guess you could call the genre. They're snowed in at this ski resort or a cabin that they went to, and she's always had feelings for this guy, and while they're there, that all sort of comes to a head, and then at the same time, there's somebody that's been stalking them and sort of coming after them. This is lower on the list than I probably would have put it if it had been done just a little bit better. I felt like the suspense side of this wasn't all that suspenseful. You kind of knew who it was going to be very early on in the story, and I just wanted it to be a little bit more creepy and a little bit more anxiety ridden, but I still really enjoyed the writing. At 27, we have one that's technically a novella, and it's 12, which is the last book, the novella in the Naturals series, which focuses on teenagers who are taken into this off-the-books program by the FBI because they are all naturally gifted at one thing or another. Kind of very Criminal Minds vibes, but make it a little bit more YA. I just really enjoyed this novella because it gave us a glimpse into them as they're a little bit older, and some of them are adults, and what their life would look like moving forward now that they've been more established in the program and, like I said, become adults. So I just really loved it. I love the entire series though. At 26, we have Neon Gods. This is a Hades Persephone retelling, and it's like an interconnected standalone with a bunch of other books that focus on Greek gods. I liked this because it had the Greek gods elements, but they're not actually gods with powers. They just are part of a ruling council, I guess we're gonna call them, in Olympus, but it's set in modern day in the United States. And I really liked that. This is a dark romance, but I don't know. I've been kind of getting into my dark romance books this year. I think I just wanted a little bit more from the characters in this, a little bit more depth to some of them. I really did like the side characters that were introduced though, so it was definitely a good read and not overly disappointing, obviously, based on the ranking for it. And at 25, nice and solidly in the middle for the most part, we have A Touch of Chaos. This is actually another Hades Persephone's retelling. This is the end of a series, though. I loved this series when I first read it and was absolutely obsessed. By the time I got to this, it had been so far removed since I had read the rest of the series because I was waiting for this to come out, and then I just kept putting it off. So I feel like I was a little disconnected from the series, but I did still enjoy it. I liked that we got more than just Hades and Persephone's side of things. We had, I forget what his name is, Dionysus, and somebody else's storyline in here too, and they all meshed together really well in this overall conflict that had been going on in the story, and I really liked the way that it wrapped up. It's a really big book, so it did sometimes feel like there was a little bit too much going on, but I would still strongly recommend, and obviously I liked it just a little bit more than the other Hades Persephone retelling that I read this in the first quarter of the year. At 24, we have Three Sisters by Heather Morris. This is one of the only historical fictions that I read in the beginning of the year, which is surprising because I typically gravitate towards at least one or two a month. But this follows the true story of three sisters that survived living in Auschwitz, which is just absolutely insane. I love anything Heather Morris writes. I really enjoyed this. I liked how she worked so hard to dedicate time to each sister's story because their storylines did diverge in the beginning until they ended up finding each other again in the camps. And I really enjoyed that she tried so hard to make sure that everybody got equal attention that they deserved. It just felt like by the end, we didn't get quite as much as I wanted because she was trying to pay so much attention to each person individually. So like it was good, but it was bad all at the same time. And then like at the end, I wanted more depth out of their storyline for them once they were out of the camps. their life afterwards kind of felt more like it was just giving me facts about the way that things played out for them, but I wanted more of a story for it. But at that point, there was so much book already written, so I feel like she was just like, okay, I have to end it at some point or else this thing is going to be like ridiculously long. If so, I don't know, but I did still really enjoy it, and it was like just an incredible story. At 23, we have The Teller of Small Fortunes. This is just a cute, cozy fantasy. Every once in a while, you really just want one of those where you sit down and there's not really a lot of brain power, and it makes you laugh and it makes you smile, and you feel like you're being enveloped in like a warm blanket. And that's what these feel like. It's just about this traveling woman who can tell small fortunes, and she finds herself connected with these two guys that are looking for a little girl, and they go around, and it's like just this cute found family. It's just fun. At 22, we have Mistborn, and this is another one that I was very torn on where to put this. And you'll be surprised that this is a 5-star read. At 22, you wouldn't expect it to be a 5-star read. It was, because the world that Brandon Sanderson made and created and the magic system is absolutely mind-blowing. It's so unique, it's so creative, it's so detailed, and the whole sort of like plot heist that they are getting into in this book is realistic. Like, it had setbacks, it had shortcomings, things didn't go the way that, like, you know, some fantasies it's, oh, happy-go-lucky, like, we figured this out. Like, no, this was really realistic for how trying to overthrow a ruler would look. That being said, this took me an obscene amount of time to finish because it is so high fantasy and so detailed and in-depth that, like, it just, at times, the reading experience itself wasn't enjoyable. So I feel like it had to go lower on the list for that purpose. Plot, characters, storyline, great. It was just the reading experience that detracts from it a little bit. So kind of the opposite of Blood of Hercules. Reading experience for that, I was so invested and couldn't stop reading it, but everything else was like in shambles. So I don't know. At 21, we have Onyx Storm. This is also probably going to surprise some people because everybody was raving about Onyx Storm. They really liked it more than Iron Flame. I loved this going into it, and then I just felt like the further that we got into this, I wasn't getting as much as I wanted. I wanted more about the different places that they traveled to. I wanted more out of the Andarna storyline. I wanted more out of the conflict that was introduced at the end of Iron Flame. It felt like that really wasn't as drawn out of a conflict as it should have been, considering how, like, massive and monumental it was. And then the way that this ended, the ending was just so rushed and confusing that I literally went, wait, what? That doesn't make any sense. And I went back and I'm like, did I miss something? No, I didn't miss something. She just, like, all of a sudden we started throwing in different POVs that were really short, and it just, I don't know, I didn't really like it. The cliffhanger thing that she's doing can be done really well. She's starting to make it feel a little gimmicky just to keep people coming back, and that just bothered me a lot. All right, we are entering our top 20. This is where things started to get really confusing for me, trying to figure out just exactly where things were. And in all honesty, I could probably look back at this in a few months and go, why did I put that there? Like, that should have been higher than this one. And like, if you go back in my Goodreads, my rating for it, like, is very heavily influenced in the way that I feel in that moment. But then, you know, things can change when you look back on it and go, oh, well, I didn't remember that as much as I thought I would, or, oh, I remember that way more than I thought I would. And like, the more I think about it, the more I love it. So that's my long way of saying this is probably very subject to change in the next couple weeks. If I were to go back in and look at it again. And if you look at my Goodreads thing, you might go, well, that order doesn't really make sense. Anyway, yeah. At 20, we have Vow of Thieves. This is the second book to Dance of Thieves. I loved this world. I could probably tell you very little about it, if I'm being honest. Sometimes there are certain fantasy worlds that, like, when I'm reading them, I'm completely immersed. I absolutely love them. I think they're fantastic. And then I get far enough removed from them and I go, I don't exactly remember what happened with that. This duology, loved reading it. The experience was fantastic, and I remember the world that she created was incredible. The tension and yearning in the romance, I ate it up. Loved every second of it. But looking back, like I said, little confused, little gaps in there, but that means that I can go reread at some point and it'll be a great experience. At 19, we have Killer Instinct, which is the second book in the Natural series. This is one of those series that the first book starts off strong, you're invested, you really love it, and then it gets better by each book. And that's all you can ask for in this series. I didn't feel like any of these books were filler books that weren't necessary. Like, I ate all of them up, and the way that each one focuses on different characters in the program and you get to learn a little bit more about them. Loved it. Absolutely great. So I really, really enjoyed this one. It just wasn't quite as good as the ending. But like I said, that natural progression where it just keeps amping up and getting better and better, especially in mystery books, it's great. It's great. Then at 18, we have A Gathering of Shadows. This is the second book in the Darker Shade of Magic series. This is one of those rare books where it's the second book in a trilogy, but it doesn't suffer from middle book syndrome. And we all know what I'm talking about when I say that. Like, it didn't feel like a filler book. It didn't feel like it just could have been sort of parsed out between the first book and the third book and we could have made this a duology. Like, none of that. It felt like it was very necessary to the plot in the third book. It connected well to the first one, had its own standalone characters that you get to see them really develop as people and their natural growth and progression. And then, like I said, the progression of the story. Like, I really enjoyed the world that she created in that series. Then I did a reread of Swordcatcher by Cassandra Clare because I wanted to get to her second book. I actually really liked this more than the first time that I read it. I listened to this on audiobook, highly recommend, because of how big and chunky she is. This is very politically driven, so if you're not into fantasies that are politically driven, maybe not going to be your thing. But like I said, I enjoyed this a lot more now that I sort of had a baseline understanding of the world and all of the characters. I could enjoy it more. At 16, we have Hunting Adeline. I know this is probably surprising that it's this far up on the list because it's a really dark book, and it's hard to say that I had a good time reading it because it has so much triggering content in it. But I was invested in this, like very, very heavily invested in finding out what happens to her, seeing a resolution for this, and I loved the very raw, honest depiction of what a lifestyle like this would look like. And lifestyle implies that it's chosen. It's not. But the realities of this version of the world that people try to push to the sidelines, I appreciated how raw and honest it was. I can't tell you what it is because then it gives it away. Like, that's the second book to Haunting Adeline. So yeah, can't really give anything away, but like I said, I appreciated all of the raw and honest, and I was just really immersed in that storyline. Then at 15, we have A Conjuring of Light. This is the third and final book in the Darker Shade of Magic series. Like I said, this whole trilogy just really felt like it was connected really well. All of the characters had a lot of growth. The storyline just culminated in this fantastic way. This one you get a lot of different POVs, which I appreciated. You get to see more of the character growth in some of the characters that were introduced in the first book, and I just felt like everything wrapped up and tied together so well, and the world and the magic system that she created in this series was very beautifully done. Then at 14, we have All In, and at 13, we have Bad Blood. This is the third and fourth book in the Natural series. Like I said, the series just gets better and better and better, and it keeps building on itself, and I loved the direction that these books took, the way that the mystery that they were solving, the cases that they were solving. I loved the way that they went. It's sort of a topic that is fascinating to me, so that made these even better, and I felt like things just got so complex, and the way that she created that storyline in her head, I'm like, how did you even come up with this? Like, it was just so cool and so well done. Adored that series so much. Then at 12, we have Witchcraft for Wayward Girls by Grady Hendrix. I really appreciate how he is able to take a horror story, make it not overly horrific. Like, there's still elements in there where it's a little, this is not making me feel warm and fuzzy inside, but it's still presenting heavier topics. And this spoke a lot about feminism and the realities of young unwed women and the stereotypes that are put on them and the way that society tries to control women, specifically in the story women and their pregnancies that during this time period society didn't want to acknowledge was a thing. So I really appreciated that, and I appreciated the way that he brought in the witchcraft element to kind of foil that theme and drive it home a little more. Sorry, that was my alarm. Just think it was so well done. At 11, we have Daydream by Hannah Grace. I loved reading this. Like, I don't think you guys understand how special it is that there is a romance book that is this high up on the list for me. I am very much a fantasy, romantic-y girly at heart. Those tend to be the ones that I gravitate towards, or like suspense, like crime dramas. I love those too. romance can come across very similar in all the books, and they're just like, okay, this is fun, it's lighthearted, whatever. Hannah Grace is different. I love her writing. Her writing is just so captivating, and it makes me laugh all the time when I read it, and then the characters that she creates, like, you just can't help but fall in love with them, and that's exactly what happened in this book. You adore Henry, but you even more, you adore Hallie. Like, they're just adorable together, and you can't help but root for them and just want the best for them, and like, I ate this book up. Like, it was fantastic. I loved every second of it, and really, really love her writing style. Okay, we're really getting into it now. We are in the top 10. Honestly, most of these, especially like the further up you get, they are barely separated from each other. Like, they are only categorized one lower than the other because I had to for the sake of this video. Like, some of them are God tier books, they're 6-star reads. Like, yeah, it was really hard. It was really, really hard to figure out this top 10 is pretty much what I'm getting at. So starting at 10, we have The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue. I still don't know what to categorize this is, like a fantasy, kind of fantasy. Like, it has fantastical elements, but it's more like a literary fiction. But I just felt like there was so much in here that spoke to just the reality of how much community and people mean in our lives, and then also makes you take a hard look at things and go, if I had everything that I think I wanted, would it actually give me satisfaction? Would I want that? Would getting rid of all of the grief and stuff that you have to go through out of X, Y, and Z, what good would that take out of my life? And it makes you look at all of that, and it's just a really haunting depiction, and it really gets stuck in your mind. And then, like, the writing style is very poetic and everything in this as well, which I really, really enjoyed. Then at number 9, we have a book that I still don't own a physical copy of, which is just criminal at this point. But that's The Favorites by Lane Fargo. I listened to the audiobook. Top tier reading experience for this one because it's just like a full cast of characters, and it bounces back and forth between the narrative and like this documentary that's being told about the story. And it's about these two ice skaters that they're a partnership, and then they're not, and then they are, and then like all the drama that unfolds of them just trying to make their way to the Olympics and what that looks like. I am very big into, or I was, I haven't watched many anymore, but I used to love watching sports dramas like Make It or Break It. What's the other ones? Whatever, like the cringy 2000s cheerleader movies were. Bring It On, all of those, loved those. The Cutting Edge, all of those things, I ate those up, and this was like that in book form. It was just fantastic, and like so much drama, cattiness between all of the competitors and stuff, and it makes you wonder, like, is this what it's really like for actual Olympians? Like, it was insane. I loved that story. Like, you just kept going into it knowing that it probably wasn't going to get any better, but you just couldn't help but watching the train as it went off the tracks. Then, speaking of reading something that you know is probably not going to get better anytime soon, we have Binding 13. Talk about heartbreak in a book. Oh my gosh. Like I said, having a romance anywhere in the realm of top 10 is saying a lot. I still just can't explain the chokehold that this series has on me right now. I only read the first book in the first 3 quarters, but I have since continued on with this series, like absolutely obsessed. I know this is labeled as YA. Listen, just because these characters are technically in high school does not mean this reads like YA. The amount of heavy topics that this talks about, the romance and the relationships that are formed in here, it's just so much more than a typical high school drama. And this is another one where you get invested with the characters and you start to feel for them and you cry for them and you want the best for them. And like I said, this is just another one where it's like, it's heartbreaking a book, but you can't stop reading about it because you're like, this has to get better for them at some point, right? Like, it has to. I can't explain. I can't explain. Then at 7, we have A Court of Silver Flames. This was actually my first 5-star read of the year. We started the year off really, really strong. I didn't expect to like this book as much as I did because I'm not a huge Nesta girly, but the character growth that she went in here, the story and the way that everything progresses for her, where she starts to just contemplate her life and the way that she is and grow as a person, as an individual, and you start to understand her a little bit more too. I loved everything about this. And it wasn't even just about redemption for her, but she helped heal a lot of other people along the way. And I don't know, I just really felt like I connected with her storyline a lot, and the way that she was so guarded, but eventually like had to learn how to bring those walls down. Then at 6 we have Fate of Wrath and Flame. I didn't think that I was going to understand this book, because reading the back of it, it's very confusing, and it's still very confusing for me to try to explain, but the world that this author created was mind-blowing, and the way that she took a character from the human realm and dropped her into a fantasy realm in a way that was not the same as most. Like most of them, it's like, oh, they stumble into this and they realize they have powers or whatever. She has no idea what's going on. She's a thief in the human world, and then she makes a deal with this person because she really doesn't have a choice to help steal something for her. And what she doesn't realize is that she is now going to be plopped in the middle of this Fae realm that she has no idea is a thing. She didn't agree to this. And not only that, she's in someone else's body and she has no idea what's going on up until that point. And when she gets there, the king, who is her, or the prince, no, king, prince, king, is her betrothed. And she finds out that she had actually, like, really done some bad things to him, and he hates her for it, but she has no idea what's going on because, like I said, it's not her body. If you like enemies to lovers and forced, like, arranged marriages of convenience and everything like that, it's all in here, but it's done so well. It's not just like throwing the trope in to throw it in. Like, true enemies to lovers. He wants to kill her. He really does. So like, he hates her for what he did or what she did. And she's like, I don't even know you. Like, so then you get the whole romance that's rebuilding with all of that on top of it, and the politics and the high stakes, and it's just incredible. And I'm really hoping that the rest of the series continues just as strongly as this did. We are in the top 5, guys. Almost there. At number 5, Houdini. Houdini wanted to chime in. We have Heir of Illusion. This blew me away. I did not expect to like this as much as I did. This was astounding. Loved every second of it. It follows a wraith who is just trying to leave her terrible life as the assassin for the king, and this Shadow Daddy Reaper comes in and he's trying to help her, but she hates him because she doesn't want to form connections with people. And like the way that this storyline progressed beyond just her trying to get away from her captive, and she finds out so much about herself and her powers and who she was. And then you get more than just like this badass female character. Like, she has so many moments of doubt and so many moments of just not winning at all. And it's great to see both realities of it. And like I said, this was just so well done. And I really can't stop thinking about it. Like, I was obsessed with this. Then at number 4 and 3, we have a duology. I didn't prefer one over the other, in all honesty. We have One Dark Window and Two Twisted Crowns. I don't know which one I liked more than the other. So like 4, 3, 4, 3, whatever. Like, put them wherever you want. I just, again, had to put them in a numbered system. This is a gothic fantasy that's just so eerie and creepy. And the magic system sort of is reminiscent of tarot cards, where if you touch the card, you can take in that power, but then it also takes a lot from you, because in this world, magic has a price that you have to pay. And then there's also this mist that causes people to go crazy if they're in it too long, so they're trying to figure out how to break the mist. Like, I just was enthralled by every bit of this book. The romance in here was great. It's a subplot, but like, I really enjoyed the romance elements that you got as well. I couldn't get enough of the gothic vibes of this. Like, I really realized that's a genre that I prefer. And if you haven't read this, like, I think it's definitely worth the hype. Then at number 2, we have the Mind F series. Yes, it's technically a series, but like, they're all novellas and then just all in one in this book. So like, I consider it a book, not novellas. I couldn't put this down when I was reading it. I just went from one to the next without stopping. Like, and I had a very brief intention of like doing a novella, going to another book, no, I couldn't. The world that, not the world, the storyline that's created in this is so mind-bendy and twisty and perverted. Like, it's dark, it's graphic, and people hear that it's dark romance and they assume it's because of the smut scenes. no, like there's not even really much more smut in here than there is in contemporary romance books anymore. It's dark romance because of the reason that she's a female serial killer. So that part's fun, that she's a female serial killer, that she's dating an FBI agent that's trying to hunt her down. Like that in and of itself is a really fun element. But really what grabbed my attention and just wouldn't let go is the female rage that's presented in here, and finding out why Lana is killing all of these people and her master plan and the way that she worked everything, and the slow reveals of what happened in her past that's leading her to do all this. It was just, it was insane. It's so screwed up. It's so screwed up. And maybe that makes me screwed up for loving it, but I couldn't get enough of this book. Like, it was incredible, and definition of supporting women's rights and women's wrongs. Like, that's what this book was, and I loved every second of it. Then that brings us to number 1. And if you've watched any of my videos recently, you will not be surprised with this book. And that is Sunrise on the Reaping by Suzanne Collins. There is not a day that has gone by since I've read this book a few weeks ago that I haven't thought about it. And that has nothing to do with the fact that my TikTok feed is primarily edits about this book. I just think about it anyway because I couldn't get over it. This follows Hamish's story from the original trilogy, set when he went through his own games, and just seeing the way that he was before the trilogy and the person that Snow destroyed and how he did it was heartbreaking, like absolutely heartbreaking. But not only that, the way that she connected his story to the ultimate end game in Mockingjay, and the way that that went down. I'm trying to say this without spoiling stuff for this book, because like you would never, I didn't expect it to be in here. And just seeing how the revolution in the original trilogy connected to this it was just insane. The characters that were brought into this and that you eventually see in the other books, I didn't expect to see them in here, but it made so much sense and was so well done that I just can't applaud her brain enough for coming up with it. And then of course there's the topics in here of implicit submission and propaganda and control by the governments, and how much do we just let them get away with, because well, what's the point of fighting back? Like all of that. She had so many messages to say in here that were just so necessary and prevalent, and I really couldn't get over it, and don't think I ever will. This is a god tier book and probably my favorite in the entire series. So it had to go in the number 1 spot. This will probably be my number 1 read for the entire year. I'm willing to say, or at the very least it's staying in the top 5. Like, I was obsessed with this. So that is all of the books that I read in the first quarter of 2025. I have a feeling this video was long, even though I tried really hard not to ramble too much, but you guys, you know me, once I love something too much, I just can't stop talking about it. So sorry, not sorry, it's kind of my thing. Anyway, let me know if you guys put out your own video like this, like a wrap up or something. I would love to see it. I love seeing people rank their books. If not, just let me know like your top 5 books for the beginning of the year. I would love to see them and just sort of talk about them. But that is all I have for this video. Please leave a like, subscribe, comment, all that stuff, and I will see you in another video very soon. Bye.